Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about good doctors. Now I did do a video fairly recently about doctors you can trust. And I did go back and look at the video. So some of these things will be from that video, but it was more of like not really a list, but almost more of a conversation. But I wanted to kind of give more of a list and also some new things that I've discovered when it comes to good doctors. Things that good doctors do, or traits that I have noticed that good doctors have. Um, Obviously, they listen or, they take lots of notes. There are certain things that are pretty obvious, but there are also other things that are not as obvious or that we often overlook because we just need a doctor or because a doctor has done something else for us. And I will be making a video, another video about an appointment that I had recently where I overlooked a lot of stuff about a doctor because she did one kind of like really great thing for me. And then I just kind of was like, well, I'm just willing to overlook the fact that she's no good. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of these traits I've seen, and I only have like maybe two or three good doctors or above average doctors. So I'm pulling these traits from just a few doctors, and I have more doctors than that. So one of the things that I've noticed is that, and again, this one is probably not, across the board. But the doctors that I have that are pretty good tend to have good energy. And I'm not talking about like woo woo energy. I'm talking about like they seem to have a good physical presence. Um, they're not like spaced out or inattentive. They also have kind of like a conversation with you. Um, I have noticed with some, in my other video of bad doctors that you'll know you're with a bad doctor when the conversation is very one-sided. When you're talking, 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 and they're not saying anything. I've noticed that some of the best doctors that I've had, it's a back and forth. You'll say something, they'll say something back. Sometimes they'll even interrupt you. They'll tell you to slow down. They'll say, give me a second. I had one doctor that would literally like tell me to be quiet because she would take all these notes. I mean, she was just typing, 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 and she'd be like, just hold on a second, give me a moment. Um, that can sometimes come across as like having a bad attitude, which is a sign of a bad doctor. So you do have to distinguish between them being assertive and them being a jerk. And I have noticed that my good doctors tend to be assertive. They tend to take control, even if that means interrupting you, even if that means telling you to be quiet because they have something to say or because they need to finish, complete their notes. Um, I feel like doctors that have that kind of energy, that are more alive and more awake, tend to be more assertive and they tend to be more on top of it. They tend to have the type of brain that you need to solve a problem. It shows kind of like a lack of lazy. They're not lazy because they're just on it. Um, that kind of ties into the next thing. One of the things that I've noticed about really, really good doctors that are exceptional, is that they tend to know things from other specialties. And this is something that I've only recently come to realize because I had an appointment with my oncologist, and she was actually clarifying some things from blood work that I had done by a rheumatologist. Now I'm seeing an oncologist, and she's telling me, things about rheumatology or autoimmune illness. And I'm like, that's not even her specialty. That's like, you know, she shouldn't have to do that, but she did. She actually explained some things that I didn't even know about autoimmune illness, and a medication that I'm on. And I was like, wow, not even the prescribing doctor has told me these things. And I've noticed even with my Lyme literate doctor, she knows things from all different specialties. And, she actually, I feel like she knows from every specialty because obviously Lyme disease is a multi-system illness. So she has to know a little bit of everything. and she's pretty intelligent. My urgent care doctor is the same. Urgent care doctors have to know a little bit of everything because they have people coming in with all types of complaints. And I've noticed that she'll, I'll talk to her about something and she's putting the pieces together in her head. She has to know a little bit of everything. And that's another thing too. A good doctor, and again, these people are not superhuman. They are still people. They still have a specialty that they focus on. There's no way that they could know everything about every specialty, in medicine. But good doctors are typically pretty good at giving you a clinical diagnosis. And a clinical diagnosis is basically you telling them your symptoms, and based on what you're telling them that you feel, they can come to some kind of a diagnosis. Obviously, good doctors will still test. They'll still do blood work. They'll still do a culture. They're not just gonna, willy-nilly just do things or prescribe medications. But I've noticed that, and I have maybe a couple doctors that do that. You'll tell them your symptoms and they're just like, oh, you have this. It sounds like you have this. And they usually hit the nail on the head most of the time. So that's somebody that's on top of it. Not passive, which, like I said earlier, being direct. And that kind of goes with, facing challenges head on. They don't give up. They're not, going to take a back seat. Again, that's not being passive. They take notes. Again, that's kind of like not being passive. If you're just sitting there like a vegetable, you're obviously not taking notes. But taking a lot of notes is one thing that I've noticed of some of my better doctors. They don't try to do it all. Now, this again can be tricky because if you're dealing with a doctor that is working within an HMO type of situation, they sometimes have to do it all because, insurance discourages them from referring to a specialist. But good doctors will say, I don't know. Let me refer you to someone who might know. They don't try to just do it all by themselves. And there are some good doctors that do try to do it all by themselves. But like I said, if they are able to, they will send you to someone else that has more knowledge about the specific issue that you're having. They're up on the latest research. I haven't really seen this a lot with my doctors that are that take insurance. I know my doctor that I pay out of pocket is always up. She's always reading the latest research, always reading about different types of treatments that are new, experimental. She's always just kind of reading stuff. And I actually recently had an oncologist that I was telling her what I did, an experimental treatment. And, she started telling me about, the new types of immunotherapies for cancer and stuff like that. And she said, that's, sometimes experimenting is what gets us to a treatment. And now we know that cancer can be treated with different types of immunotherapy. We can harness your own immune system to fight cancer. And that is kind of like the latest thing in cancer treatment. So I can tell that she is up on, the latest research and the latest science. And she is actually one of my better doctors. And speaking of this doctor, one of the things that totally blew me away with my most recent appointment with her is that she was non-judgmental. And I am starting to notice with some of my younger doctors or some of my newer doctors that I don't know if they're being trained to be less judgmental or just, I don't know, maybe to have a better attitude about certain things. But I was telling her about the exosomes treatment that I did, and I was really nervous because I thought to myself, she's going to get pissed, she's going to get mad because I had to stop my other medication. And she actually told me, she said, sometimes that's how we find out whether new treatments work or not. That's how we find cures for things, is by experimenting and trying different things. And I was really surprised that she didn't get like super mad at me because, I guess she had every right to. But she was so non-judgmental and so understanding. And I told her, I said, I've had such a rough year. It's been really hard. Obviously, my own fault because I chose to do that treatment. And she didn't judge me. She just said, I'm so sorry. And if you don't want to do, a mammogram this year, I understand. If you're not feeling well, we can just skip that and, we'll wait till next year or something. That was a pleasant surprise, to be honest. I was just not, I was not expecting that. Um, One of the last things is a doctor, well, actually, no, a doctor that owns up to their mistakes. And I think it's really difficult to, this one is also another one of those double-edged swords for doctors because admitting that they made a mistake can get them in trouble with the medical board. So I do sort of understand why a lot of doctors won't admit that they did something wrong. They sometimes just make excuses or cover up for it, or they'll just discharge. They'll discharge you and send you to another doctor. But a doctor that does say, I don't know, or I'm sorry that treatment didn't work out, we'll try something else, or stop taking that medication if you don't feel well. It's sort of a doctor that can pivot, pretty easily or pretty quickly. But yeah, owning up to their mistakes is really important, but I do think that that's a difficult one for them because there can be legal ramifications with that one. Offers different treatment options and informs you of the risks and benefits of each treatment. One of my recent doctors, my prescribing doctor, she seems to have sort of just kind of given up, and she's not really telling me about other treatments or informing me about anything else that's available. Obviously, I have a rare condition, and so it's difficult. I understand that that's hard, but I think a good doctor will say, look, there is something else available. They at least offer it to you or present it to you. And they kind of give you the option whether you want to do it or not. And I do know that there are a couple of doctors of mine that have done that. And they've said, after we've tried the same treatment, like say, for example, for an infection, we've done the same antibiotic over and over and over again. And then she says, look, there's this other thing on the market. It's a little bit newer. Do you want to try it? It does have these side effects, but if you want to try it, we can try it. So at least there is that offering. But there are some doctors that just, they prefer the status quo, and you've been doing this for a long time. You seem fine. Just keep doing it. And that takes little effort, right? I think that's what I have for now. Obviously, this video is shorter than the bad doctors one. I could have gone on and on with the bad doctors video. But with good doctors, it's a little bit more difficult because they are, especially like HMO doctors, they are very stuck because they can't use the full, they're sort of beholden to insurance companies and to the HMO, and they can only do certain things, right, to keep costs down, because that's what an HMO is. An HMO keeps costs down for the company or for insurance. So, I understand that you can still be a really good doctor and work for an HMO. You just, I guess, have to get more creative and have to be a little bit smarter with how you approach your patients. But anyways, if you have any other things that you want to add down in the comments, please do, because I know this would be helpful for people that are starting their, chronic illness journey, that are looking at different doctors or want to find a doctor that is decent. So please leave it down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.